Hey everybody, I'm your host Kual, and this is my lovely co-host.
Maria.
Right, we had to start it because it wasn't recording. Um, last time we presented, we were reviewing Star Wars, and there was a lot of discussion in between the record of our Star Wars review and this review, um, which might be a better episode to for us to discuss what we debated, but we're not going to fill you in. It had a lot of words that you guys should not know anything about. But today we will try to review. No, not try. We will. There is no try. We will review Empire Strikes Back. So, like I said, I'm representing the Jedi fanboy perspective, and you are the antithesis, like the dark side of the Force. So, the first question I want to ask is, how do you feel? Um, how do you feel Empire Strikes Back compares to Star Wars?
I mean, I think it's a lot better than Star Wars.
Okay. Well, can you tell me some of the things that you feel, some of the things that you think make it better?
Less boring. I know that's kind of a
Mm-hmm.
general statement.
Okay.
Better effects, special effects, I guess, like the
Mm-hmm.
asteroid war that they had. I don't know if that's.
Mm-hmm.
The beginning was better. I think that I liked the where I think somebody was stuck out in the ice or the cold, and they were so it's had a beginning that was sort of more
Like it started on
suspenseful.
like a
Yeah,
cliffhanger.
you're sort of like, oh, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
So I just thought it was just it just seemed more interesting. It held my interest.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So even though we disagree on a lot of things, I would say that technically, if you look at Star Wars, Strikes Back is light years beyond where Star Wars started from. You had a lot of the rough cuts and the general idea. Um, and I think that the story was pretty great. That's debatable for some, but for me, it's not debatable. I think the story was great, and when you appreciate the franchise, you go back to the original Star Wars as to this is where the whole journey began, and it's kind of like almost like a what do you call that? Like a cult classic, because the movie generated and started a cult following,
Right.
and so a lot of the geeks and fanboys and nerds and even people who like film appreciate it for being so original. But I can understand if you're not a fan, then you might look at it like, oh, it's kind of, you know, it's almost like when you see Superman, the first TV shows that show Superman flying. It's almost like if you look hard enough, you probably can see the cables. So, I mean, I think that as it pertains to Star Wars, it was very, very original, very deep, but at the same time, from a technical aspect, you had to kind of suspend your disbelief in what you were watching because, But anyway, don't want to ramble and reiterate the same point over and over. So let's move on. Star Wars kind of rough, Some even look at it as like, it was heavy on story and exposition, wherein Empire Strikes Back was more technical, maybe even more action, better effects. Okay, agreed. And a lot of the fanboys, who saw the original trilogy, consider Empire Strikes Back like the best in the trilogy. Some, like myself, consider it the best Star Wars movie, period. But it's a lot of debate with new neophytes, Padawans, and the older Jedi. A lot of debates about whether Empire was the best ever. There are people who really like Rogue One, which I don't even consider to be part of the saga, but you know, it is part of the franchise. Um, some people really hated the prequels. Some people really hated the sequels. I like the prequels, and I liked the sequels a little bit more. Okay, enough about that. Let's see, what other question can I get? You know, what do you think about the story development? Because I remember when we were watching Star Wars, you said, did Darth Vader kill Luke's father? I thought that he was Luke's father.
Mhm.
And because you weren't sure, I was like, well, listen to what Obi-Wan said. And I wanted you to view it
Mhm.
from the perspective of somebody watching it for the very first
Mhm.
time, even though, you know, even people who are not fans of Star
Mhm.
Wars generally know that Darth Vader is Luke's father.
Right, I was told
But
that, so I
what
thought,
what did you think about how it was presented, and put yourself
Yeah.
in the mind of someone who just found that out for the first time, and you
yeah,
kind of sort of did because you weren't sure.
yeah, I mean, I
So
thought, well,
what
I was
did you-
second guessing myself.
What did you
but
What did you think about that?
I mean, from
reveal?
someone who really didn't know, I mean, I did kind of know. I mean, it would be shocking, I think, because I can't remember the exact scene, but I think they're fighting or they're talking or something, and
Mhm.
he, I guess Darth Vader's trying to get him to go over to his side.
The
I
dark
think.
side of the Force.
Yeah, and then he says father, which I think would be super shocking for anyone who didn't have a clue or the first time seeing it.
Mm.
So, but I had heard that, you know, for years and years. I've heard that. Just never really watched it.
Mhm.
You know, I never saw that scene
Mhm.
before.
Mhm.
So yeah, I could see how. For me, it was like, oh, that's okay. Yeah, this
Mhm.
is confirmed. But
Right.
I could see how someone finding out for
Yeah.
the first time would be.
Yeah, so just
surprising.
imagine how a farm boy
Mhm.
who grew up with his aunt and uncle, who knew that something tragic happened to his father.
Mhm.
He probably wasn't exactly sure what, and maybe his
Mhm.
aunt and uncle didn't want to tell him the whole story, you know, so they raised him on
Yeah.
a farm. He seemed to be unhappy. He wanted to go off and become, you know, a pilot,
Mhm.
you know, and join the rebels,
Mhm.
much like his dad did, that he really didn't know much about, but that was his dream. So being raised by aunt and uncle, you know, then meeting Obi-Wan, then Obi-Wan explaining that your father killed,
Mhm.
Darth Vader killed your father, and then you have to go and confront this
Mhm.
evil Darth
Right.
Vader. And he's trying to spare your life because you are his child, and he reveals to you for the very
Mhm.
first time.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the mind,
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah, I want to say a
Mhm.
bad word, but I'm refraining. Yeah, so can you speak to the surprise that Luke may have had about that reveal?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that he is disappointed and horrified, you know,
Mhm.
because I'm sure he was hoping that his father would be somebody good and somebody he could look up to.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm sure that that was really shocking for him.
Would you think that it would make it more challenging for him to um, follow the path of the light and become a Jedi? Or do you think that with this reveal he might be more, you know, like he might be more likely to cross over into the dark side? How do you?
Oh, I think he'd be more motivated to go to the good side
Mhm.
because, yeah, I don't think he would want to follow his father. Nothing so far has said that he would be doing that. So, yeah, I think he would. But I think he'd be troubled by it all, and I think it would be hard.
Mhm.
He'd probably be distracted, but I think he would want to continue being on the good, the good side of things.
What is your take on the introduction of the character Yoda?
Oh, right. Yeah, I mean, he obviously, Luke was surprised that he was the Jedi Master because he doesn't look like, you know, he doesn't fit the part of what you would think.
Would be some fierce warrior.
Yeah, so he just doesn't fit the part.
Uh,
But I think, so he's an interesting character. I mean, he's definitely, maybe that's good. I like that idea that he doesn't fit the part, because maybe in life people don't, people don't always have to look a certain way to be something. I mean, I think it's sort of like you have to look at, what the person can do, not what they look like. So maybe there's a hidden message in that, but.
Right. Like not to judge a book by the
Yeah,
cover?
exactly,
Okay.
yeah. So I like that aspect of Yoda.
What is your take on Yoda's knowledge and wisdom? What is your take on the power Yoda possesses?
I don't know if I can speak on that too much, but I think I don't know. Maybe ask it maybe a different way.
All right. So, what happened to Luke's plane when he went to visit Yoda? What happened to it? Do you remember?
I might have to remember, because it's been a little while since I've seen the movie. So remind me that part. I can't remember the details. Because again, I know I'm not a Star Wars.
Okay, so ask me some questions about that then. Let's pick up where
so
we left.
what happened to his plane?
Oh, okay.
What
Well,
happened to his plane?
Luke and R2 go to Dagobah system looking for the Jedi Master Yoda. He runs into this small, frail, old alien character that looks very weak and feeble and stuff, and is hidden out and secluded on this system, this planet. So he lands in this swamp and everything, and I think from the time he landed, the plane even sank further into the water.
Okay.
And so Yoda was giving him lessons and teaching him. And then it came time to, getting the plane out of the water. And that was a big scene. And one of Yoda's most memorable lines, Luke was like, okay, I'll try to get it out of the water. And then he goes to try, and he wasn't able to. And the first thing Yoda said is that there is no try.
Oh, right.
You either do or you do not. And then he sat there and focused and lifted the plane from the water. So that flew over your head?
Well, I remember that there's no try. I remember that part.
Oh, you remember.
But again, I'm not an action movie person, so if there's action going on, I may, unless I see the movie a couple of times, I may not.
So now that I explained to you the wisdom and the knowledge that Yoda has, I mean, what do you think about the statement, there's no try?
Well, he's powerful. He's powerful. I mean, he's a motivating character, and he's very inspirational.
Right.
So.
Right. So I know I speak a lot. I believe in the secret, and it's like I think, therefore I am. And you always look at things from the most positive perspective, and you talk in terms of what you want to have happen. And a lot of people have doubts and fears and are very insecure. So that's why I'm trying to figure out, like, what is your perspective on the take of either you do or you do not. There is no try. Like, do you see any wisdom in that? And if so, can you speak to it?
Well, I think if you don't think you're going to do it, then you won't. So I think you have to come at it with a perspective if you're going to.
Right.
So I think that's the only way to approach
right.
life is, I mean, maybe you won't succeed, but if you start off saying you're not going to, then I think that's not a very good kind of perspective to have.
I think it was Henry Ford who says, the man who thinks he can and the man who thinks he can't, they're both right. So Yoda hit us with a little bit of Henry Ford's
Right.
wisdom. Maybe Henry Ford got that from Yoda. Maybe Henry Ford was a Jedi. What do you think about Luke's power? Like how he presented himself in the movie, how he was up against this evil villain, Jabba,
Yeah.
and he was like, I give you one more chance, Jabba, to let us go or die, and when you look at Star Wars and where he left off, he had his arm chopped. No, actually, he didn't have his arm chopped off. But let's see.
He had like a bionic arm or something like that. Didn't he at one point there was some controls on his hand or
That
something?
was
I'm
in
trying to
the
remember.
end of Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
In the end of Star Wars, let me see what happened. Obi-Wan died, and Luke was a hero. But
Yeah.
oh wow. But you know what? At the end of Star Wars, wow. Hold on, I'm getting the movies confused. So in this movie, oh wait a minute. Okay, I'm confusing the beginning of
Yeah.
Return of the Jedi. So
Okay,
scratch
okay,
the
okay.
question. I
Okay,
skipped
okay.
ahead. I skipped ahead. I skipped ahead. So as it pertains to this movie,
Right.
what do you? Yeah, Lando Calrissian was presented for the first
in Empire Strikes
time
Back.
in Empire Strikes Back. What do you think about his character?
Well, they seem to. I don't know. He seems to. They seem to be negative toward him a little bit. They seem to be. I don't know. They don't think he's doing what he's supposed to be doing. I mean, he's obviously an ally.
What did Lando do that was a big disappointment to Han Solo in Empire Strikes Back?
Yeah, that's something that you're going to have to remind me, because I know that there was something about him being a disappointment. But again, details in these movies are hard. I mean,
do you remember they went to visit Lando, right?
Yeah, I remember that.
And they were questioning whether they can trust him. Do you remember him turning Han over to Darth Vader?
Okay, no, I don't remember that. There's holes for me in Star Wars. I have big holes in it when I'm
Okay,
watching
so
the movies.
so ask what happened
Okay.
to
All
the
right.
introduction of Lando,
Okay,
and
so
then I'll have to
Yes, so please
explain.
explain about Lando, because I'm very fuzzy on.
Okay, so what happens is, Han, Leia, Chewbacca, they go to meet up with Lando because they're hiding out from Darth Vader. Darth Vader is very upset about what happened at the end of Star Wars. The Death Star was blown up, and the rebels had, they seem to have won. So in Empire Strikes Back, Darth Vader is chasing them across the galaxy to find them, hunt them down, and possibly kill them. So they're hiding out. They're being chased all over the galaxy. And so they go to find refuge with one of Han's old friends, Lando Calrissian. And they meet, and there's some trust issues. And at first, Lando seems like, he doesn't want Han there. Like, hey, he called him a name that, swindler or whatever. And then he was like, I'm just joking. They smile, they hug, and everything is supposedly cool. And then, since they've last met, Lando is, supposedly on the straight and narrow path, and he's a leader. And, he runs this place. I forgot where Lando is from, and I'm so upset with myself being a Star Wars geek. I mean, it'll come to me. I just don't want to say the wrong name, but I totally know the name of the system that Lando runs. However, they go to visit him there, and it seems to be, a rich, wealthy place. And Lando seems to be on the up and up, and he seems like he can help them out. He then turns them over to Darth Vader, and Chewbacca was so upset he almost strangled this man.
Okay.
He wanted to strangle him because he sold Han out. Leia was upset. She was gonna watch him get strangled, but he was like, "There's, we have a chance where we can save Han." As Chewie's choking him, and so I guess because Leia loves Han so much, as she revealed to him as he was being put down in carbonite, she's like, "I love you," and before he goes down in the deep freeze, he's like, "I know." Like that was a classic line. So, I think that Lando obviously was paid off to save, the place that he runs. He was paid off and had to turn him over. But I think deep down he regretted it, and he was going to try to renege on a deal he made to save Han. And he did it, how can I say, sometimes we have to make choices that we do not like to advance our plight. And I think that he took the payoff, but at the same time, he wanted to see if he could get the money, benefit his people, and then have the ultimate win-win. Which, I see celebrities do it and politicians, and sometimes there's a lot of hate in these situations. But, every now and then it works out for the betterment of everybody, and then we can all ride off into the sunset, with the win-win and be happy. And so I think that Lando gambled on the win-win. And so now he's racing across the galaxy after he sold Han out and had him frozen in carbonite. He's trying to save his friend. So that's what happened to Lando, a very big part of Empire Strikes Back. All of this that happened was major events, and it's just, yeah, I don't know how someone would see it and miss all that. But, I am the fanboy nerd. You are not. You are a part of the dark side of the Force. It's clear. I'm wondering if there's anything else. We discussed Yoda. We discussed Jabba. What was your take? Wait a minute. We discussed Jabba. Jabba shouldn't have even been brought up because that's from Empire Strikes Back. Yeah, but so I'm messing up as well. I guess I've joined the dark side of the Force. Let me see. As per Empire, okay, I remember in Empire, as Luke was in the middle of his training, he found out that Leia and Han were in big trouble. And he, I think, was privy to the fact that Darth was using them to get to him. And, Luke doesn't trust Darth Vader, so he was just thinking like, man, if he's trying to use my friends, he may even kill him just to get back at me. So I have to go and save them, which was against Yoda's wishes, was against Obi-Wan's wishes, because they felt that he could be seduced to the dark side if he left without completing his training. What is your take on him going to save his friends not being willing to sacrifice his friend, not being willing to sacrifice his friends, um, and at the same time not being fully trained in the Jedi arts to protect his friends. Like, what's your take
Mhm.
on that whole thing? And we're gonna. This is the last question. We're gonna
Yeah,
end it.
okay,
We're
just
gonna
that he's not prepared yet, or he's not really
put it-
fully
well,
ready or something?
Yoda
Mhm.
never finished training
Right.
Luke. Yoda advised Luke not to go and to sacrifice his friends for the
Mhm.
greater good.
Mhm.
Obi-Wan advised the same thing, but Luke was
Right.
like, I'm not sacrificing my friends. They mean the world to me.
Mhm.
And the thought of losing them, I'm
Yeah, that's
I'm
most-
going.
So that's a good, I mean, he has good character. I mean, if that's what he, I mean, with his loyalty to his friends. So I thought that's, I mean, so I think it speaks to his character.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that he definitely was a loyal friend,
Mhm.
definitely very brave.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I question, is it the wisest choice to make
Mm-hmm.
if you're going into a battle half-cocked, not fully trained,
Mm-hmm.
the odds are stacked against you, and you're just willing to risk it all
Mm-hmm.
to save your friends.
Yeah, maybe he didn't feel like he had a choice.
You know, like sometimes there's a ship that's sinking and you can go down with the ship, or you can fight to be the lone survivor to later avenge,
Mhm.
you know, and I mean, that's a tough
Mhm.
choice. I think that every man or woman has to make at one point in their life, you know, like,
Mhm.
what do? Is my goal to save everybody? Is my goal to save somebody?
Mhm.
Is the goal
Yeah.
to save myself? You know what I mean? And you have to weigh your options
Mhm. Yeah.
and decide for yourself what's best.
Well, especially if he was getting advice from other people, he'd want to listen to them.
Right, but he did.
But he didn't. Right.
Yeah, he took it upon himself
Yeah.
to do what he
Yeah.
felt was right, and I'm just gonna
Yeah.
leave. I'm gonna
Mhm.
leave it there, and he winds up getting his arm
Mm-hmm.
chopped off.
Yeah.
You know, tough
Mhm.
price to pay, but I guess you know his friends were saved,
Mm-hmm.
so maybe
Lessons are learned. You know, in that episode.
yes.
Yeah.
And you know, because I've seen the whole series and beyond, I think that he made the right decision
Mm-hmm. Okay.
in retrospect. But you know, being the age that I am now, I think it's dangerous to run off into a situation half-cocked, not being fully
Mhm.
trained. You know, thinking that you're going to save the world,
Mhm.
and it could be
Yeah.
at the expense of the big picture.
Yeah.
But
But he's young.
But you know, I'm not gonna lie. You know, if I look back on my youth, I used to feel like it's better to die for a noble cause than to live and die a slave.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was one who would resist,
Yeah.
and that's much like how Luke is,
Mm-hmm.
much like how I was. I'm older, I consider myself wiser, so I think I would take a position a lot like Yoda and Obi-Wan. But I think that the youth, and this is why it's so important for the youth to get as much knowledge as they can and to make their own decisions once they have said information, because older people tend to look at things from a different perspective due to their wisdom and experience. But sometimes the young people can find a way to accomplish a goal that the older generation could not quite figure out.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are times when they just have to step out on faith and be bold and daring, have crazy,
Mhm.
as it would seem, and, you know, not accept failure as an option. There is no try. Either you do or do not, and he
Right.
went to go
Mhm.
save his friends.
Yeah.
Failure wasn't an option. So maybe he had learned a lot more from Yoda than Yoda had even imagined.
Mhm.
And I think this is a great place to end it. And I'm so glad that you appreciated, you know, Empire Strikes Back more so
Mhm.
than you appreciated Star Wars, because it was hard to sit and review with you a movie that you didn't feel had any redeemable qualities, but at least with Empire, which is arguably the best in the franchise, you did find some positives
Mhm. Yeah.
that
For
made
sure.
this Jedi happy. And I'm gonna end it here, and may the force be with you and you, the audience. All right.